we want to spend about 15 minutes here and provide you with an overview of our first major research initiative area. I put together, I requested slides from the lead folks in the projects that we have, put those together and ended up with way too many slides. So there will be some that I go through very quickly, but I do want to touch on each of the projects that we have in this research area. So before we get into the specific projects, just to help you remember and hone in on what we are trying to hone in. One is we really want to produce products that can be implemented. And for those of us on the planning side, that may mean something different than those of you that maybe work more on the technology side. So what we're trying to do are come up with tools, with models, with processes, procedures, things that can be used to help those that are in these agencies out there working with the rural areas and trying to figure out what they're going to do with regard to these emerging technologies, how they consider that in their existing planning processes, or maybe you need different processes. That's what we've kind of seen so far with things like the EV charging stations and all, at least in Tennessee. The planning for those has gone on pretty much outside of the existing processes. So one would think that at some point, kind of everything gets meshed into that traditional planning process. How do we do that? Those are the kinds of things that we're looking at with this MRI. So as Doug mentioned, there are, when we put the proposal together initially, we had 3 projects, major projects that fall under this. I won't read through all of those. I'm going to go through each project kind of one by one, touch on some highlights of it. But before we do that, we do have a couple of the REEs that fall under the umbrella of Major Research Initiative 1, and they just got started. You know, some of them just had their kickoff meetings only a few weeks ago, so not a whole lot of work has gone into these so far, but I wanted to highlight them a little bit. I don't have more slides on them, but just to point out a couple of key aspects. This 1-4, the Community Assisted Rideshare Service for rural communities. What they're really looking at is trying to go out into the community with heavy on community engagement. And they're looking to try to understand in these rural communities, what would this kind of program look like? What would is there a single model that could be applied in many, many different areas? Do they need different sort of, you know, a lot of flexibility? Can they hone in on what, you know, what the key things for success would be? And so there's going to be, like, as I said, a great deal of community engagement in this project. Now, the project 1-5, equity and affordability of automated vehicle passenger services in rural and underserved communities. This is one that's more on the modeling side. So they're taking kind of an existing predictive model that was used in an urban area, and they're looking at how they can transfer that application to rural areas. So I think that probably in a lot of the projects that end up being, you know, under the whole umbrella of our center, we're going to be looking at things that maybe are well understood, well implemented, or soon to be easily implemented maybe in urban areas. But then our role is going to be to figure out how you transfer that to rural applications. So now looking at some of the specific projects. So the project 1-1, that's actually one that I'm involved with. I'm the lead on that, along with folks from UT, Assad Katak and Usman help a lot there. We got folks at FAU and at here at AT and NCA&T they're working on that. The concept here is, well, if you're going to have limited resources and you know you can't just kind of blanket implement these emerging technologies in rural areas. Well, how do you go about deciding where you're going to go with those resources that you have available first? So we are looking at trying to figure out how to do readiness assessments for these areas. And you can kind of read through the text there. I guess the thing I would highlight off this slide is that at this point anyway, we've sort of limited our scope somewhat to where we're going to focus certainly on connected and on automated vehicles, on electric vehicles, and on advanced traffic signal systems. And then perhaps also, a fourth area of, internet connectivity and how that impacts and lays the foundation for some of these other technologies. So what I asked folks to provide me so that I could share with you was sort of four things. One, wanted to just a project overview. Two, sort of progress to date. Three, challenges that they have already identified. And then four, next steps. So that's kind of what we're going to do with each of these three projects. So with this one, this is just highlighting some of the work that has been done already. We have had some success in finding data that allows us to characterize the rural areas across the country. That was existing data. We're think that we can do quite a bit with it, but we're still trying to figure out exactly how that might fit into a tool or a process that we're working to design for others to use. And that's one of the things that we've been working towards is it's not just a research project that we're doing to get results at the end of, but rather a research project designing a tool that others can use. So kind of our thinking is that, we look at these different technology areas, and I'll use the automated vehicles as an example. And then we try to get down in terms of readiness into some of the key requirements and then some sub-requirements. And then one potential model of how we might develop sort of a scoring system is FHWA's INVEST tool. It's not really, it's targeted to doing sustainability analysis, and but it's got a structure that we think that we might want to somewhat use as a model for the scoring system that we would do. So this again, in terms of how that might look, you can see sort of how you could idealize some scores there based on the different parts of readiness that we decided to include. And this is sort of a kind of a conceptual look at the different components and how they might fit together to as part of an overall framework. This slide is on the challenges. For me, unfortunately, it was the easiest slide to put together in that we have had more challenges than what I kind of expected when we started into this project. Just to, read through these because I think they're important because they also lead to what I don't have a slide for, which is kind of our next steps. But there was fairly limited relevant literature specific to the rural environment. We're still working to find the different data sets that we think that we need. We found the one that I highlighted, but I think there's probably a lot more data that is needed. It is more challenging than I anticipated, again, coming from the planning side, not the technology side, to define what readiness means for a given technology. And so we're kind of working through that. How do you decide when a place is ready or not for implementing something? And then setting a level or multiple levels for assessment. We want to focus in on that. And then just doing this on a data-driven basis as opposed to just a qualitative basis. All right, so next project. So this one is focused on rural healthcare. deployment and kind of looking at areas out there where there's not good service now. So one metric that you can use to look at that is where hospitals no longer exist. And so if you follow the news, at least in Tennessee, I know, and many other areas over the past decade or two, there's been lots of rural hospitals that close. And so that means that access to care goes down. So here's some of the work that they've been doing. They've, I believe, had maybe more luck than what we have in terms of finding data to support their project. They do feel like they've made some good progress there. Sort of related to, or another layer to consider there is, where is transit service available? And so they've already found some work that I related to where transit is not available. This next slide, I think, does a better job of showing that. So if you look at the large green bars on every other one of those bar graphs, it indicates the transit gap. And for the green, that's what they call the non-core areas. Basically, that's the areas that are outside of an urban core, not in the rural area. So you can see that for these three states, those bars dominate. So they've got some of the similar challenges to us in data. They've got a different level of complexity, and that they also need some medical data, which has its own set of challenges, as we all know, in getting access to that. And then this kind of talks you through some of the steps that they still plan to go through for the remainder of the project. Third project, I think, is one that's much needed and will be really interesting, and that's looking at benefit cost for CAVs in rural areas. You can see kind of the project team there, and what they hope to do is kind of develop the information that people can use to do these benefit cost analyses. Here's a quick flow diagram of what they're planning to do. And I like June's progress to date thing. I think that's really helpful, shows where they've made progress in both data collection and the literature review and the other tasks that are yet to be done. Let me just jump to this next one. So on their challenges, as you kind of read through this, one of the things that really stood out to me was the fact that so many things are changing, that they're trying to do this project, but it seems to be that it's a moving target. And so I think that's kind of one of the things that probably all the projects under this MRI are going to be facing, and that as this technology is emergent and it continues to change as it's implemented, then that presents challenges, because a lot of times with planning, you're trying to have a base which you're comparing things from and looking to the future. So the fact that things are changing so quickly in some of these areas, it really becomes a problem in terms of trying to plan for the future based on that. And then this just kind of finishes up and shows, kind of some of the next steps. This project is going to be pretty heavily focused, I think, on safety issues. And just to kind of wrap up, I was trying to look through and summarize how to tell the story of MRI-1. And I think part of the story is that we have a lot of breadth in that area. Most of these projects have a little bit of overlap with one another, but not very much. And I think that kind of tells the story that we're trying to touch on a lot of different areas, but no specific area within the overall MRI area in a lot of depth. So that's kind of where we are right now. So with that, I think we're going to move on to the first of two presentations that have to do not so much specifically on project updates, but on the areas that the projects are covering. And Assad, you want to come up, and I'll let you do yours first, and Then June can do his next, and you're going to help him get all right, thank you.